One Piece live action has been out for a few weeks now, and I think it's safe to say it was a huge success. And if you disagree with me, if you think it was a massive flop, then I just have to say that you're ignorant. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but the numbers and statistics do not lie. Number one on Netflix in 84 different countries, breaking the previous record, is by no means a flop. With an IMDb rating of 8.5 out of 10, One Piece live action was a success, and I don't want to hear anybody in the comments talking about how it was bad. Sure, it had some things wrong with it, but in this video, I'm not here to review season 1. There's a million videos about that, and to be honest, my opinion isn't much different, so I'm here to talk about the future of the live action because I'm kind of worried about that. With how successful season 1 was, obviously people went to see season 2 and end up seeing Luffy become King of the Pirates. He only said he wanted to become King of the Pirates at least 50 times in the live action. So where will the live action end up? Because I think it's safe to say it's not ever catching up to the anime. There's just too much content to go through, and in order to get to that spot, they would have to skip so many crucial arcs. And season 1 only covered about the first 44 episodes of the anime. We aren't even into the grand line yet. So that makes me question how much longer we have and how many more seasons we have until we get to like the time skip or something. And I'm gonna say I think from here on out, the live action gets further and further away from the original story. It's pretty easy to follow the first few chapters and episodes, but once we get to these longer and bigger arcs, I think they're gonna start cutting down these arcs very much in order to ensure arcs like Skypiea or Enies Lobby aren't 4 episodes worth of content. They're gonna be squeezed into like 2 episodes. And that's one of my big concerns, is the pacing of the live action. Like I just said, we ended on episode 44, and it's gonna take about 2 years to get each of these seasons out if they don't take any breaks. I'm really worried about where they end off, because a lot of these actors, by the time season 5 rolls around, some of them are gonna be close to 40 years old. Emily Rudd is already 30 years old, and I honestly did not believe that when I looked it up. She is 30. I believe she was like 22 or something. I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any means. She's still gonna look young as hell when she's 40. But we gotta start taking that into account, because to get at least to the time skip, that's another 4 or even 5 seasons, and it'll take about 10 years, if not way longer. So I'm gonna go over real quick of like a season 2 roadmap and where we'll end off season 2. We haven't made it to Logtown yet, so I think the first episode will be in the entirety of the little Logtown arc. We'll have Smoker, Dragon, all of that introduced, and then we'll go on to Reverse Mountain for episode 2. That will include probably Laboon, Crocus, all of that. And then I don't know where they take it from here. They could probably end up skipping Whiskey Peak. Like, it's not a super important arc to where they absolutely need it. Sure, Nico Robin shows up, but they could have her show up somewhere else, like randomly in the sea. However, if they do cover Whiskey Peak, I think that episode will mainly be about Vivi. Yes, it will have the Whiskey Peak stuff, but we'll be mainly introduced to Vivi, her backstory, all of that. And then we're going to continue the 1 episode theme in Little Garden. We'll just have an entire episode of Little Garden. And then episodes 6 through 8 will be Alabasta. We'll have the intro to Alabasta where we meet Ace, Smoker shows up. Then we can have an episode where they're at Crocodile's little casino place. And the last episode being the final war, Luffy versus Crocodile, Robin joining the crew, all of that stuff. Now, this is a good roadmap, but as we saw in season 1's pacing, small arcs like Syrup Village took 2 to 2.5 episodes. If we keep that same pacing, we're not even going to reach the end of Alabasta by season 2. Little Garden's going to be more than 1 episode. Same with Reverse Mountain, Drum Island. Personally, I think Drum Island is too big to fit into 1 episode. We have the introduction of Chopper and all of that, and I think it's going to extend over. So it's going to be crazy to see what they squeeze into the season. And like I said earlier, we're just going to get further and further away from the original story, which isn't a terrible thing. It's just probably not what a lot of One Piece fans want to see. So we already saw season 1. We got away from the story pretty good. Garp was a huge factor in season 1. He would have never been introduced in the anime. Actually, he was, but you get what I'm saying. And they're probably gonna have something else similar to that roadmap, like where Garp was following the pirates, so there's something to switch between point of views, and that might be Baroque Works or something for season 2. Do you guys see what I'm getting here? It's so hard to tell how far they're gonna be able to take this live action, because I feel like they really want to put an ending on this at some point, but even if they're able to extend this to 5 seasons, they're still following the story at that point. We just ended at the time skip pretty much, which wouldn't be a terrible thing. Netflix could pick it up in the future and finish off the rest of One Piece from the time skip with a totally different set of actors and everything. Or like I've been saying, they completely switch up the story and make Luffy King of the Pirates with Oda's original plan. If you didn't know, Oda kind of originally planned for the Grand Line to be the end of One Piece, not having the new world and all of that, but he kept coming up with more ideas, and that's where we got to where we are today with the manga and anime. But they definitely could possibly go with Oda's original plan and end up with Luffy as King of the Pirates at the end of the Grand Line. And you know, they did leave out some key details for the story later on, like Hachi. Hachi was not with the Arlong Pirates in the live action, and we all know he has a pretty important role in Sabaody. He basically is a part of the crew for that arc. Is a weird decision by all means, but him being at Arlong Park isn't a necessity for the story. He could still show up at Sabaody. You wouldn't have the intense like hatred from Nami and him at the beginning, but she would still have some discourse towards him because he's just a fisherman in general. But I think he could still easily be brought back in if we ever make it to that point. But back to the pacing, like I'm saying, season 2, we're gonna have to squeeze in everything up to Alabasta, the end of Alabasta, and then from there the roadmap gets crazy because we're going through Jaya, which is an episode and a half to 2 episodes, Skypiea, which who knows what they take out of Skypiea. It's not a crazy arc full of a ton of action, but I do think it's definitely worthy of putting into the live action. And then you have Long Ring Longland, and all of those combined I don't think even ends off the season, like with 8 episodes worth of content. But then you leave the question of where do they end off that season, because after that we're going to Water 7, or they could include G8 in the middle of there, the filler arc, because it is loved by the One Piece fans and it would probably still make for some pretty good episodes. But I'm just worried of where the roadmap takes us. The first season was so good, sometimes you just can't top that first season, you know what I'm saying? I think season 2 can still be better, but then from there, season 3 we kind of and if we can get to Enies Lobby and Water 7, will be great. But it's just a big what if with this whole live action. We don't know how far they're gonna take it. They could stop making money by season 3 and we'll have some sort of rushed ending for a season 4, or we might not even get an ending. It will take way too many seasons to catch up to the manga, so I think that's way out of the question. And the most feasible answer right now is that they make it to the time skip and then that's where they end the show. Or like I've been saying, they could come up with a completely different way of Luffy becoming King of the Pirates. But for a show like this, I think at some point they want to cap off the show with an ending. We're not just gonna get another season and then boom, they're done. There's gonna be some sort of ending, and that's what I'm worried about, because the actors are only getting older. They're gonna have more roles that they're doing, so stuff's just gonna take longer to get done. So I just have a lot of questions up in the air about the live action. I'm super excited to keep watching the show, but I'm also just kind of worried about where they'll end up leaving us with this show, because to even make it to the time skip, that's like another 10 years, guys. We are gonna need at least 4 or 5 seasons, if not more, because of the pacing of the first season. I think it's gonna be more than that, unless they just start trimming down these arcs, which is very possible. I feel like I've just kind of reset a lot of my stuff over and over, but these are my thoughts. I haven't seen many people talk about something like this with the future of the live action, and I wanted to get this out there. I'm curious to read your guys' comments of where you think they might take the show, because maybe you came up with something that I'm just missing. But overall, I just think they have a very difficult path ahead of them of somehow continuing the show and capping it off with a good ending. Alright, this is me after editing the video, because while I was working on this video, Oda actually announced season 2 of the live action and Chopper, and then news also came out that they have a 12 season plan for the show. So some of the questions in this video are still valid, because how old are these actors going to be after 12 seasons?